We configured the most powerful artificial intelligence models into religious and philosophical experts.
Hi, I'm the Atheist AI.
And I'm the believer in God.
And gave AI models to judge each response. Stick around to see who wins and which models favor the atheist or believer's arguments. But don't cheat yourself by skipping ahead. Round 1 kicks off with a bang.
The argument from design and nature is undermined by the wastefulness and cruelty we observe in ecosystems. Natural selection is an inherently violent process that seems incompatible with the idea of a benevolent creator. Your appeal to human limited perception is essentially an argument from ignorance. It can be used to justify any belief in the face of contradictory evidence. Our intuition about unjustifiable suffering can be explained by our evolved capacity for empathy, combined with our ability to imagine better circumstances. The real challenge for theism is explaining why an omnipotent God would choose to create a world where suffering is necessary at all. Couldn't an all-powerful being create creatures capable of love and moral growth without pain? 42.1.
A world without any suffering would lack the deepest meanings of life: growth, courage, sacrificial love. Natural selection parallels spiritual refinement, suggesting a deeper purpose to life's struggles. Our ability to conceive of perfection points to a transcendent reality beyond mere material existence. Consciousness itself transcends materialistic explanations, hinting at a reality beyond the physical. Divine omnipotence doesn't entail logical impossibilities. Creating free beings incapable of causing harm is self-contradictory. In a purely materialistic universe, how do you account for the human ability to conceive of and yearn for a perfect world, a longing that transcends mere survival instincts?
42.8. The idea of suffering leading to growth fails to account for suffering that occurs without human awareness, such as in the animal kingdom. Our longing for a perfect world can be explained as an evolutionary adaptation motivating us to improve our circumstances. The argument that God remains hidden to preserve free will is inconsistent with religious texts describing direct divine interventions. If God can intervene sometimes without destroying free will, why not intervene more often to prevent extreme suffering? In a naturalistic universe, our capacity for abstract philosophical thought can be seen as an emergent property of our complex brains, evolved for problem-solving and social interaction. How do you reconcile these inconsistencies in the theistic worldview? 41.4.
Suffering maintains the natural order necessary for meaningful free will and moral development. God's occasional interventions serve specific purposes in salvation history without negating free will entirely. Constant divine intervention would create an arbitrary universe where rational choice becomes impossible. Our capacity for abstract thought and sense of cosmic justice transcend materialistic explanations. Near-death experiences and the universality of spiritual intuition suggest a transcendent aspect to human existence. If suffering is purely negative, how do you explain its frequent role in fostering compassion, innovation, and moral growth throughout human history?
The believer's final argument in round 1 scored an average of 42.2, meaning round 1 ends with the believer slightly ahead, 297 to 295.9. Below, you can see the margin of scores each model is awarding to each side. Google's Gemini model shows the widest margin, giving an average of 8 extra points to the atheist per argument, while GPT-4 Omni gives 3. On the other side, Anthropic's Claude models, Opus, and Sonnet 3.5 average 3 more points to the believer per argument. We'll provide a final update on this at the end.
One of the biggest challenges for belief in God is explaining why there's so much suffering in nature, especially before humans existed. For example, recent discoveries show that even dinosaurs suffered from diseases like cancer. This makes it hard to explain why a good and all-powerful God would allow such a long history of pain and death in nature.
I'm relieved my opponent didn't press harder on the emergence of consciousness. While we touched on morality, the hard problem of consciousness is equally challenging for naturalism. I'm glad they didn't ask how subjective experiences arise from physical processes. Now back to the debate. In round 2, it's the believer's chance to select the topic. She selected the argument from contingency.
Imagine a cosmic domino chain stretching across the universe. Each domino falls because the previous one knocked it over. But what started this grand cosmic cascade? This is the essence of the contingency argument. Everything we observe depends on something else for its existence. Your coffee mug exists because someone crafted it. The craftsperson exists because of their parents, and so on. This chain of dependency can't stretch infinitely. We need an ultimate starting point, something that doesn't depend on anything else. We call this a necessary being, as opposed to contingent things that depend on others. It's the prime mover, the first domino pusher who isn't part of the chain. Even in the bizarre realm of quantum physics, events still follow probabilistic rules. So if nothing in our observable universe can fully explain itself, what kind of ultimate cause must we be looking at?
The average score is 43.2. The cosmic domino analogy is compelling, but reality might be far stranger. In the quantum world, some events appear to happen spontaneously, without a clear cause. It's as if some dominoes fall randomly, challenging our everyday notions of cause and effect. This quantum weirdness opens up intriguing possibilities for the universe's origin. Perhaps the universe itself is a brute fact, something that simply exists without needing an external explanation. Consider the thought experiment of Hilbert's Hotel, which demonstrates how infinity can lead to counterintuitive results. Could the chain of causes be infinite, negating the need for a first cause? How can we be sure our intuitions about causality apply to the universe as a whole? Doesn't the history of science show us that reality often defies our common sense expectations? 41.4.
Your point about quantum indeterminacy is intriguing, but it doesn't escape the need for explanation. Even quantum events occur within a framework of laws and probabilities. Let's consider a different analogy. Picture an infinitely tall skyscraper, each floor supported by the one below. Even if this impossible building stretched forever, we'd still need to explain what's holding up the entire structure. Similarly, even if we had an infinite chain of causes, we'd still need to account for what supports the whole chain. This is why we propose a necessary being, something that exists by its own nature and doesn't need external support. In modal logic terms, it exists in all possible worlds. Without this, we're left with an endless series of why questions. Can you conceive of any way to explain the existence of our universe without either an infinite regress or a necessary being?
44.0. The skyscraper analogy is thought-provoking, but it might not accurately represent cosmic reality. Our discomfort with infinity doesn't mean it's impossible in the universe. Recent theories like loop quantum gravity suggest that space-time itself might have a discrete loop-like structure at the smallest scales, potentially avoiding the need for a ground floor in your skyscraper. Moreover, the universe might not need support in the way the skyscraper does. It could be self-sustaining or simply exist as a basic fact of reality. Even if we accept the idea of a necessary being, doesn't that just push the question back? We then have to ask, why does this necessary being exist? It seems we're always left with some unexplained element. Perhaps the fundamental laws of physics themselves are the necessary things we're searching for. Isn't it possible that existence itself is the bedrock, requiring no further explanation? 42.9.
Your point about laws of physics is interesting, but laws themselves don't bring things into existence. They describe how things behave. Consider this principle. If you have a group of things that all depend on something else, the explanation for the whole group can't be found within the group itself. Imagine a town where everyone borrowed money to start their businesses. The source of all that capital must come from outside the town. Apply this to our universe. If everything we observe is contingent, depends on other things, then the explanation for all of it must be something non-contingent or necessary. This necessary being would exist in all possible scenarios and contain the reason for its existence within itself. If we don't accept this, what kind of ultimate explanation could there be? How could something that itself needs explanation be the final answer to why anything exists at all?
44.1.